appear to be live.
Awesome.
Welcome to the park meeting, March 20th, 2024. We're starting this meeting at 7:35. Please join me with the
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just because this is our first meeting after our new members have joined, I'm going to go around the table. I'm Pam Moll, I'm the chair of Park.
I'm James Drury. I'm your ex officio from the Board of Selectmen.
My name is Shelby O'Donnell, and I'm a new member of Parks and Rec.
My name is Matthew Beeler, and I am also a new member of Park and Rec.
Lisa Grolian. I am the park director, or what's my other title?
Coordinator.
Dave Lundeen, I am the vice chair.
Thank you very much. Amendment to the agenda, we are going to move the non-public for Chase Park to the end of the meeting. To make it easier for Kirsten because we can't go out and go back into streaming.
Yeah.
So that is the only agenda, only amendment. And then we're going to open it up for public comment.
Hi, my name's Bill Anderson, 137 East Road in
Hi.
Ware. Hi. I wanted to speak to East Road and its potential development for recreation. Both before and after recent voting, this has become a hot-button issue. The rhetoric, both in public and especially in social media, is destructive and not constructive. Parks and Rec and Conservation have both expressed concerns, but to date, I haven't heard anyone really soliciting comment from the residents who live in the neighborhood as to what they think. I've spoken to a number of area residents since, and their concerns echo mine. While there may be others, there's two primary concerns we have. Recreational development would forever change the multi-generational agricultural use of the land, as well as destroy the rural character I've come to enjoy the last 29 years I've lived in Ware. And recreational development would increase vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle traffic on a secondary road with many twists and turns running east from the town center, which would increase safety concerns. As the town proceeds, I would encourage taking down the temperature and looking to ways we can work together. While I do not support recreational development on East Road, I offer an alternative which I believe could satisfy recreational demands without destroying the rural character of East Road. Bolton Field is already servicing multiple recreational needs and lies on a main thoroughfare. A large portion of the tract is still undeveloped. Admittedly, that portion is not ideal with rock removal and costly site development, but it could be done for a price. There is also abutting land which is currently in conservation, which would be more suitable for field expansion. And I would encourage Parks and Rec to pursue discussions with the Conservation Commission on whether a portion of that tract could be developed for recreation. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes.
That abutting land, where is that? Is that abutting land to Bolton or,
To Bolton,
okay,
is what I understand from talking with,
okay. I just was trying to get clarification. because
yeah.
Be a
scheduling
great
broke.
question for conservation, because my understanding is they're not allowed to switch it over. Because the land on East Road was initially, that was part of the deal, that eventually there'd be fields there.
Yeah, I don't want to try
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
rehash history of
No,
what
I
was
know,
or
but I
what the
think
intent
that
was.
conservation has an issue with,
Yeah.
I think there's a legal issue with how they spend their funds, so.
Right.
That they can't go back and then put recreation on conservation. I don't know for
Yeah, I
for
know,
sure,
I'm just saying, and I know there may be complications. There's
Yeah.
also complications up on East
Yeah.
Road with, so if you talk, if, say, one view is that it was intended to be in conservation, wasn't
Yeah.
technically put in conservation, then conservation could view that as, it should have been in conservation. So if you can give up that, maybe there's a way you can give up this. I just view that as being a more suitable venue because it's
Yeah.
already recreation in the area, and you're just expanding that. And ideally, that would be the case. You're not just destroying something, the rural character of one area to create a need, to meet a need, when you already have an area suitable for that, which may have to jump through a hurdle.
Yeah, I think we all totally understand, so.
Yep.
it's-
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Hi, my name is Paul Massaro. I'm been a resident of Ware for over 35 years, 114 Pine Hill Road in Ware. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of a proposal that I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with, but I coached baseball with a individual for many years, Jason Keim. He was a local resident. He's also Air Force veteran and a retired Manchester police officer. Jason passed away last August at the age of 51 from cancer. Jason raised his 3 kids, Tyler, Kendall, and Hunter, here in town. He coached all of them for many years. I knew him professionally and later became good friends with him through coaching. We first coached against each other, and later we joined forces, taking turns every year as a head coach. Through T-ball, rookie ball, U12, Babe Ruth, regional all-stars, middle school, and finally helping out with the Legion team. Jason also ran the clinics that we had every year at the middle school and the tryouts for the teams that we had when we selected teams. So needless to say, he was a dedicated individual with well over 20 years of coaching. He was a positive role model for other coaches, as well as the kids. He treated all his players equally, regardless of their ability. He spent time to make them better players, and more importantly, better young adults. I'm here tonight to ask you, and I know I don't know, I've been up here for a long time, I've never seen this done before. I wanted to dedicate the baseball field at Bolton in Jason's name. I don't want to change Bolton Park name, I just want it to be the Coach Jason Keim Memorial Field at Bolton Park. If anybody deserves it, it's this guy. I know some of you know him from coaching. I don't know how many. I could talk up here for hours, but I'm trying to be brief. I started coaching up here in '87 as I was teaching DARE at the middle school. I've seen a lot of coaches. I've worked with a lot of coaches. Nobody is close to his level of dedication in the lives that he's touched of the children in this town and surrounding towns through All-Stars and everything else. I'm not looking for any money. I will get this funded myself. All I'm looking to do is maybe have a dedication on opening day this year and put a sign up, maybe on the scoreboard, in memory of Jason. I will take care of that. I will do all that. I've spoke with Mike Provencher from WAC. He's the president. He thinks it's a great idea. Like I said, I could go on forever, but I'm going to leave you with this. Not many people can say that they touched so many lives through the impressions that he made and the values that he instilled will carry on within all of these kids and for future generations to come. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Obviously, it's kind of hard for me to talk about this. He's a close friend of mine, and he played a huge role in my son playing baseball. So with that, do you have any questions for me? I'll answer anything you have. I want you to know how important this is to me. I don't take it lightly. And I like I said, if anybody deserves this, it's him.
I think it's a great idea. We have to find out what we are allowed to do with that.
Okay.
So we will.
I don't know if you have to go to the selectmen or Naomi, but I'd be willing to come to a select board meeting or speak to Naomi about it. Okay? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anderson? Is that Anderson?
Anderson, yeah.
East Road. So he's the
Okay.
neighbor, so not wanting the traffic.
Well, our last member is Denise Purington. We introduced ourselves.
Oh,
The new
sorry,
member,
I
so-
had told you I was gonna be late, yes, sorry.
We do have a minute taker. Kirsten is going to do the minutes.
I saw that.
We do need to make a motion to have her do the minutes. The stipend would be $60 a month, or $60 a month, coming out of the, whatever the line is for.
Is the wages transcriber, so it's 01-452-010-111.
Yeah, that's the one. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to hire Kristen O'Brien as the Parks Minute Taker with the stipend of $60 a month to come from the transcriber park budget line 111.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
So can I ask a question related to that? Is that effective tonight?
From what I understand, yes.
Can it be retrospective, or, I just didn't get the minutes done from the 8th, and I can go back and do them? Or I gotta go listen to the tape, or does it just start tonight?
I would say it just starts tonight.
Okay,
'cause
so
she was
I-
just,
All right,
at the last board of selectmen meeting.
okay. So I owe a set of minutes from the 8th. I've been out of town and I haven't had a chance to
Okay.
get those done. Oh, it's gonna be so nice when I have to take minutes.
Right, so Denise, you also raised ex officio transition and voting. You had asked me to add that to the agenda.
Yeah, I think I had two things, but yeah, so just, and this is kind of a question for you, I'm gonna put you on the spot right away now. So as we're working on our bylaws, which I think when we talked at our last few meetings, we talked about doing bylaws so that we can be consistent with other boards and committees and commissions within the town. And I'm a strong believer of consistency, because then we all are doing the same thing. We had a lengthy discussion about the ex officio role, the role voting, not voting, which we'll incorporate, I think, into the bylaws. And I think it was our understanding that then the bylaws have to go to the Board of Selectmen for review and approval.
I believe that is correct.
So the other night, I'm watching the Board of Selectmen meeting, and I see another commission indicate that they've changed the bylaws. And oh, by the way, they don't have room for an ex officio, essentially, and they can't vote. And so I guess my question to you, is there consistency across all town boards, or can we do what we want to do? And you may not have an answer, and I'm not looking for an answer. I guess I would just, the new board talked a lot about transparency and being more open. And I guess as we're working to get our act in gear, and, is there consistency across all the boards, and is there a standard? We all have an ex officio, we don't, they're voting, we don't, unless it's dictated by RSA, then I can understand that might be different.
Yeah.
So,
So I have done a little bit of research into our town, and there does not appear to be a lot of consistency. There were a couple of the boards or commissions or committees that did have an ex officio. Most of them that I looked at did not have anything that would define this role specifically. So based on that, and again, this is my opinion as just one
Right.
member of the board, but I would encourage you to number one, keep the position, and two, to allow it, to keep it to having voting privileges. There are, I think, more benefits to that than not having voting right? Typically, what I have seen in other places is the ex officio is considered a full member of the board unless it is specifically defined as not having voting privileges. So, I guess unless there's a real compelling reason not to have voting, I think you'd be better off having a voting member on.
Yeah,
on the
and
board.
I'm not saying that I disagree with that. I guess my point is maybe that you could even pass along to the Board of Selectmen. I mean, it would almost be great if we had, here's the template
Right.
that you should follow for creating your bylaws.
Right.
And in that template, and I think we're going to copy the bylaws of possibly, or try to fill the format of another, the other committees, but they're not all the same. But it would be nice if the town said, here's the format that you should use, and each one should you should be addressing your membership, your meeting, your officers, your minutes, so that we're all following the same consistency. And unless otherwise directed by an RSA, what is the guidance of the board? Should all the boards and commissions have ex officios? And if they should they all be in a voting position? I'm just suggesting that it would be nice if it was standardized. And it just seemed the other night like it's at the discretion of the board or commission versus, I believe you're the governing body.
Right. So I have not gone into the depths of what the state RSAs are
Yeah.
for the different things. I have looked, I looked at what you provided
Yeah.
for chapter 35 for Park and
Yeah.
Rec. And that isn't as well defined as some of the others, even at the state level.
No, it is not.
Right.
So we'll work within those parameters. I do like the suggestion of having as much standardization as possible. I have also not dived into, like I said, the RSAs for other
Yeah,
committees.
and I know I'm
to
kind
look
of
at
putting
that.
you on the spot,
No,
but I
that's-
guess
that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I guess I'm just throwing it out there as both a member of this committee and we're working on it, this
Mm-hmm.
commission, but also as a taxpayer to say it would be really nice to be able to know no matter what commission, board, committee, we all have the same format of bylaws, we all have the same standards of ex officio, we all have the same standards of voting, because what we saw here at the last meeting was, well, some ex officios have chosen not to, some have chosen to. If we had that standard, we wouldn't even have to be having that discussion.
Sure. Well, and that, some of that is up to the individual.
Yeah.
For instance, coming in,
Yeah.
I might not vote on some of your minutes
Right,
in the
right,
past, because I wasn't
right,
here for
right,
those,
right,
so
right.
that's difficult. I know in the past, on Park, going back 10-plus years, that the ex officio at that time was a voting member. The director was not at that
Right.
time. The next officio hardly showed up at all to those meetings after
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah,
that has been hit or miss, and that's
Yeah.
that is up to the personality of the
Yeah.
selectmen as well. So, I know that I would,
Yeah. Right.
unless otherwise, things change. I mean,
Right.
I would be voting as much as I could.
Right.
And I'll certainly be here as often as I can.
Right.
To be a benefit to the board, to Park and Rec as well as to the selectmen, to be, because, like I said, in the past, it's been very helpful to have somebody here immediately.
Right.
That if I can't answer questions,
Right.
then I can certainly go back and say, hey, some of these came up. And the same with anything that you guys have, to be able to present that,
But
to have that information available.
in doing that, you would present the wishes of the board, is my understanding,
Absolutely.
even if
Yeah.
they're not your
Even if you
particular wishes.
disagree.
Oh, I will tell you if I disagree with
Yeah.
something right off the bat, but
Yeah.
as a member of the board, I have that one say
right.
at all.
Right. And I think that I know from the 3 years I've been here, it's been nice to have somebody, the ex officio here consistently, because it does improve the communication between the two groups. I would just like to see standardization and
Sure.
some kind of a policy, if you would, that then we're all adhering to. Because right now, it feels like in this town, it's at the whim of whoever happens to sit on the commission or the board at any given time.
And a lot of it is up to the, well, I'll say there may be some of it may be up to the selectmen
Yeah.
to set, but a lot of it's gonna have to go to the town.
Yeah.
I believe once all of these are finalized, and you say, this is what
Yeah.
we want,
Right.
then it would, let's say it happens in, March, or not in March, because we're in March, well, let's say in April, everything's finalized for what you want to have happen here. Then we could probably put it into practice this year, but next town meeting, we'd probably vote to make it official.
So the bylaws for all boards and commission go eventually for approval before the voters at town meeting? Do you know? I just don't know.
The answer is I don't
Okay.
know.
That would be interesting, because we'd have to vote on every single line. But I think the question that Denise has that I'm still not clear, and I'm not sure if you are clear, is if other boards choose to not have an ex, and we're not saying that we want that, but if other boards choose to not have an ex officio, then how is that right? Shouldn't all boards be required to have an ex officio?
If I may expand on this, I've been doing the research on the bylaws, and I don't want to take up too much time. Throughout the state of New Hampshire, it is all over the place.
But I mean, per town, shouldn't we be consistent as a town?
That's what I was just.
I believe that too.
Standard, I guess.
To me, that's a Board of Selectmen and town question. But just from what I'm seeing that's in practice, it's all over the place. Some places have an ex officio that is also the director and they're a non-voting. Some have an ex officio that is voting. They also have the ability to abstain from anything, from their votes if they choose to. It is literally all over the place. The only things that I've seen that are mandatory according to 35 is a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Everything else is open.
Well, there has to be more than a chair or vice chair, and is that just because?
That's just the mandatory positions.
Oh, the officers, okay.
Yeah, that's just the officers.
Right.
Everything else is optional depending on what the committee decides within their own bylaws. So there is not a standard beyond the 3 officer positions. That's how I understand it so far.
And I wasn't looking to belabor this either. It was just, maybe that's something you take to the board. I know you're got a fair, new members, but maybe raising that, should we not have a standard? And do all bylaws require the approval of the Board of Selectmen? And it would also be nice to know if they require the approval of the town. Because then we're all working against the same standard.
Yeah,
And I
so,
think that's what we're looking for,
So-
standardization.
right, so I will reserve the right to be corrected
Yeah.
by anybody who does additional research. Some of the committees that we have are under the direct control of the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
The selectmen appoint the members, and they work under the auspices of the board. Others are more independent and are working directly, I'd say, pretty much under the state guidelines. So there may be some differences
Yep.
that way.
Yeah.
Now, again,
Absolutely.
I am more than welcome to be corrected on my understanding.
I wasn't looking for answers either. I was just saying it just as we're working on this process and then looking at what others are doing, it would just be nice if we were all doing the same thing.
Yep.
Because then it would make it easier when you go to the website, boom, you all have the same.
Or certainly as similar as they
Yeah,
possibly
yeah,
can be.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
My opinion is, the way we've done it, kind of past precedent is, no offense, you can't vote, you're here to advise and give us direction, say, no, that can't because of whatever, and I'll take that back to the board, but until we get everything ironed out and straightened out, I would say either abstain from voting altogether until we get done, because Salem didn't vote until like the very last meeting.
Well, I think
He
that-
didn't really vote on anything until February or March meeting, so.
I think that's because before we didn't have, the person prior didn't vote. But I think that and I might be incorrect, that there is a rule that an ex officio can vote
I think
legally.
I think the state RSA
Yeah, says,
says the ex officio is a voting member. To my point, what's happened here and where, I think, is each committee, commission, board has decided we'll have them vote, we'll not have them vote. And then you get board changes like we have right here, and there's no consistency. Hence, I mean, I don't have a problem with the ex officio voting. We'll be talking about it through the bylaws. But to that point, it's just, I guess that's why I'm raising it, is to have the guidance from the board
Sure.
that says each committee, commission, board will have bylaws. And in those bylaws, at minimum, you'll address this. And the role of the ex officio, unless otherwise dictated by an RSA, is or isn't a voting member, well, then we're all consistent across the board.
So-
and the existence of an ex officio or not
Right.
should be consistent across all boards. So there should not be somebody who says there's no room for an ex officio.
So what we would have to do, and if I can go back and clarify a little bit, I think in the town ordinances, that we would define what an ex officio member is, and that would be somebody who is a member of the
Yep,
selectmen,
yep.
who would be on the individual boards that would have full voting member
Right,
rights. So
right.
we would define that
Right.
as that way.
Right.
Then it's a question of, is there a particular board that the ex officio should not be a member of? So make the default,
Right.
they're a member.
Right.
Then the exceptions would be, should they not be a member, or should they be a member without voting
Right.
privileges? I could think of like the finance committee.
Yep.
It wouldn't make any sense to have a selectman certainly have voting rights there, and there'd be the question of, well, should they be an ex officio?
Yeah.
Other than for being present at all,
Right.
to be able to
Right.
answer questions
Right.
that the finance committee might have.
I think by doing that, too, the other consistency that I see is, you know, you have turnover of boards and commissions, and this is a good example. You know, we went many, many years to discover we didn't have bylaws. And now that we're working on them, then we had like, well, no, they vote, no, they don't. Do we, you know,
Right.
if you had that, let's see what the town says, well, that makes it easy. Because then you can just say by town, by the guidance of the Board of Selectmen, as we're developing them, and oh, by the way, when a new board comes in at some point, or new members, they know, just at whim, we can't go back and change them.
Right.
That we have a standard by which we have to follow, you know, so it really provides a little bit of guardrails.
No,
if you
absolutely.
will. And that's really all I'm trying, maybe I'm not getting the point, right way,
No, I
but-
think
yeah.
you're making the point.
Yeah.
Well, I understand,
Yeah,
I understand.
to have those guardrails so that by the whim of any committee or commission, when the members change, they can't say, yeah, we don't want that anymore.
I think for me, the larger issue is also responsibility. So who are we responsible to and what are we responsible to as a board? And I would say that all of the boards and commissions are responsible to all of the residents of Ware. But we're also responsible to what it is that our commission is here to do and support, which sometimes is in conflict with other commissions and sometimes not. But in terms of the Board of Selectmen, we are responsible to the Board of Selectmen as much as the Board of Selectmen is responsible to us, because we're all representing the residents. So I think in terms of responsibilities, and it might be what you're getting at, but it gives me pause if there is a committee or commission that was appointed originally by the Board of Selectmen and now isn't allowing contributions or input from the board, where are those lines of being co-responsible to one another? So, anyway.
Because I think it's always been my impression, to your point, that yes, we serve the community, but ultimately, we go to the Board of Selectmen for things to be approved I mean, there's certain controls we have.
Right. And there are
but
certain things that we would have to go-
that you're gonna have to
Yes.
take up for
Exactly.
us, or we're gonna have to go and, you be our advocate for that, so.
Exactly.
And I think that's, again,
Right.
why the importance of getting bylaws for us done. Again, we'll have some,
Yeah, because the checks and balances are not
Yeah.
clear unless or until
Yeah.
there are those bylaws in place. I guess.
But again, they need to be consistent. So if
Right.
there's, I can understand, I think I know what you mean by the whole, wow, it's windy out there. I think I know what you mean about finance committee, because finance committee merely makes suggestions, where we are actually voting on things that could, whether to spend money or not. So I get that, but it's not that should be consistent across boards, not just.
Yeah, so the finance committee is a very unique thing because it is the town moderator that appoints the members there, and they have nothing to do with the
Yeah.
selectmen at all. And you could make the argument that they are somewhat, I don't want to call it antagonistic, but I'll use that word for lack of a better term, because the finance committee is directly responsible, well, to the moderator, but also to the people to provide the information to
Kind of a
to
checks and
read.
balance, yeah.
Exactly, to read over the warrant articles and the budget, to make recommendations, up or down vote on it, and then say why. Why is this why do we think this is a good
Right.
warrant article versus why we think this one we can hold off on or not spend that money on? So that one definitely, as I should probably not have,
Yeah.
probably would not have
Right.
have a ex officio at all. Now, that doesn't preclude any selectman from showing up and being able to talk about that. And I believe, and as of right now, as of the last meeting, the board was looking at making at least a liaison to conservation to make sure that there is some communication going on there. That said, we'd have to go back and look at what what's legal, what's required, what's not.
what the RSA
Exactly.
says, and I think that's I know for us, and, we immediately pulled the RSA for Parks and Rec to just make sure, as Matt just said, what must we adhere to?
Right.
I know in the RSA for Parks and Rec, it's silent on an ex officio, so we can.
Everything,
Yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah.
everything is silent on
But
that.
so-
I only found like two
Right.
instances in all of the
Right.
RSAs.
So if it's silent,
State.
if it's silent on most of them, then, to my point, why wouldn't the town consistently have them on every board and commission, and then say, and oh, by the way, they're going to be voting members? And then, end of story, we can't, but on a whim, come in here and say, yeah, the board's changed a little bit, and we've decided we don't want them voting. It just puts those guardrails, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I do thoroughly agree with that.
Okay,
That
perfect.
going forward, that'd probably be something that we need to,
Yeah.
discuss.
So if I may, I believe the conversation started with, because last month, before I was appointed, I requested from the stand that maybe the board vote at that time, is the ex officio going to be a voting member, I believe.
The conversation started months before
Yeah.
that, actually, but yeah.
So
yeah.
I believe that since we do not have bylaws yet, and it's been such a question, maybe we need to move on, we need to just have a vote. Is from, a temporary, kind of like how we discussed the temporary positions for the new seats. Is the ex officio going to be a voting member or not?
I don't think
Temporary
that,
issue.
I don't think technically we can vote on that, because I think legally they can vote. I just don't even think that I don't think it's something that we can vote on. Legally, he can vote.
Again, I don't know how much what you've dug in research. My research so far has shown that not every committee has to have an ex officio
We don't
by
have
law.
to have one
And that
apparently.
not all ex officios can vote, because some ex officios are also directors, and
Oh.
that's a non-voting. So that's why I was saying it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And just so that we can move on with the business that we have, I think it's a decision that needs to be made one way or the other.
Like from
That's all.
now until the bylaws are put in
That-
place?
yes, that's my
What are we
intention,
going to
yeah.
do?
But even, and I agree with you, and even when the bylaws are in place, this is a perfect example if we said, what does the Board of Selectmen
Exactly.
recommend? We will have one, and they will be a voting member. Bingo. Question answered. So, you know, I agree, and I don't, personally, I'm not opposed to them voting. You know, I think we talked about if we had the right membership, so that it's an odd number. I think it was 6 plus the ex officio. Well, we still have to decide on the director.
We have to decide on
Yeah.
director, we have to
So-
decide on number
But the
of
thing
members.
is, I think the only caveat to that I would say that my concern is that every single, it should be the same across boards. I understand there's a difference in the
Yeah.
finance committee, but this committee, conservation, everybody should either have an ex officio or not.
Yeah.
It has to be consistent.
I know, I get that, but, so we have one.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad we do. And I think to Matt's point, you know, do we advance a motion here, right? No? You don't?
No, I don't think we can.
Oh,
I
okay.
think
don't think we
legally,
can. I don't think-
legally he votes.
Oh, okay.
He can
All right,
vote
so-
for right now, and then
Okay.
if we have to change it, we'll
Okay.
change it.
As we work through writing the bylaws and researching it and getting that structure completed, then we can address that.
Okay.
And there are times when, since we're having this discussion, there are times when I abstain from voting because it's things that that I'm directed to do, so I'm fine with not voting. And I think that that's the direction it was gonna go into anyway, because I think originally paid people such as transcribers don't vote when they attend meetings, and I am paid, so.
That
Um,
is
but-
further in research that I'm trying to
Yeah,
get
but
to.
having said that, I was voting before, I think because I was volunteering so much.
You were a
I'm gonna
member-
step
You were a member
back.
before.
I am gonna step back if I'm not a volunteer, I'm gonna step back from volunteering so much, so, which I need to do. So I will stick with my duties but I do need to step back from the volunteer stuff, so that means, and we have more people on the board now, so certainly that will be helpful. But my family and I have been pretty buried in volunteering for Parks and Rec for a long time.
And you should not feel like you have to. Again, as being somebody who was involved with Park
Yeah.
10, plus years ago, my wife was on the board, and that meant that I was out doing a lot
Yes.
of things, whether
Yeah.
it was shoveling the bark mulch at the playground, or setting up, like I've said, setting up the ice rink, years ago when we had that in the center of town.
Yeah.
Things like that. We had lots of people. Now, everybody who was on the board was out doing all those things as much as possible. Obviously, if we decide to do something on a Saturday and you already have plans, you can't, it's like, no, you must be
Yeah.
there, right? We all do as much as we
Yeah,
possibly
I
can.
know.
But you don't have
Do
to,
need, but yeah, no, and I've been volunteering for a very long time, and there was during, oh my gosh, when the sprinklers went, I probably spent 40 hours one week down at the fields. But yeah, if I'm not, but that's the thing, if you're volunteering and you're voting, you're doing, but if I'm not voting, then I can feel a little bit better about backing off a little bit, which I do need to do.
And I think even as we look at the job description, because it's been a while, we have to look at it from the perspective of, not based on a person in the role, but, what
The
is
role
the,
itself.
what is
The
the
role
role
itself.
itself?
yes.
If Lisa, we hope she doesn't, but were to leave a year from now, you don't want to have to change the role because you've made it fit one person.
Right.
So I think that's the other importance of a,
Yep.
Yeah.
job description. It's, and if we had to grandfather voting in because she was promised that, that's fine too, but we could then address it
Well, that all comes down, I think, to what's the town say, what do we do with bylaws, what does the state say? So,
Right.
yeah, that's all part of the reasons why we're trying to get the bylaws in the first place.
I know historically, the coordinator did not vote because they were a paid employee.
Yeah. But there was there is definite difference from, and I served on the board before I was coordinator, there was a definite difference in the amount of time spent too. So, I totally understand, the way, the transcriber's the same thing. If we had a transcriber, they wouldn't be voting, so
Right.
it's a different,
Great.
yeah.
Not to say that you can't change that, but I'm just, that was what it was historically before.
I think
Well,
it's good conversation.
one section of
to
history
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
Set the stage for what.
But we
you're
do
doing.
need another
exactly.
number,
We would have to
because
have an
you're
odd
uneven
number.
right now.
Yeah.
So in that case, is there something in the bylaws that would say, well, in the event of an uneven amount, then would you not vote if it was gonna cause a tie?
We'd be an even number, not an
Yes.
odd number, we'd be an even
But-
number.
but I think-
So
Right
you didn't
now,
vote.
I'm not voting, it's an even number, there's 6 of you.
Yep.
So in the event of that causing a tie, would then the ex officio step back and not vote, since they get their vote really at the?
I'm,
I'm
That's a
asking.
good, that's a, no,
that
that's
is a very good question.
But that-
And
that
it's-
could happen
it's
at any given time.
undefined, and I think for our commission, undetermined, because we're changing things as we go
I'm
at the
just saying that
moment.
I think, as a member of this community and not as somebody who's gonna bring up anything to vote from now on, that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely,
But I
absolutely.
think that could happen at any time. You could have 2 members out and then you're in it
Yeah.
even or
Or you
odd.
also, part of the bylaws for most committees is we have alternates, and they can come into play in those scenarios where we do have a deadlock for whatever reason,
Yeah.
a quorum, whatever.
Whether the
that's
ex
what the
officio
alternate is for.
meets the needs for a quorum or not.
Exactly, yeah. Again, all things we can define in the bylaws, because they're not, from my research so far, defined in any RSAs or that I have found in other committee bylaws, so agreed, something that needs to go into the discussion.
All right. So I think we're just gonna table that for now and just keep working.
Yep.
on it. I'm going back to the minutes. Did we ever review the February minutes yet?
So at the last meeting,
I think we
we-
tabled it again.
to be reviewed at this, we were gonna do the February and the March 8th, except I didn't get the March 8th done. So I think we just need to do the February
Okay.
minutes,
I believe that as well.
I haven't read the February minutes yet.
okay?
I haven't read them, I'm sorry.
So can we put that in for the April meeting when we do February and April 8th, or March 8th?
March 20th, too.
And then March 20th.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we should all try to, including myself, but make a commitment to make sure we look at them so that we don't have any more than 3 sets, outstanding. But, yeah, the February ones, and if you need me to resend them, I can.
No, I have it in my email.
Okay.
I know I didn't receive those yet.
All right,
and
so
I
I'll
don't-
resend them.
We
All right.
don't have .gov emails yet,
Yeah.
which is a whole other issue, but we
So
can
the
move on
next
from
meeting
there.
is gonna be
Well,
April
we don't
9th.
either.
April 9th, you
April
said?
9th.
None of us have done,
Okay.
yeah. But you guys need to get added to park.
Park, yes,
Yeah.
that's what, I'm sorry, that's what I
Yeah.
meant. My apologies.
But I'll make sure I I have both your emails, but I'll resend those tomorrow, so you have them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll try to get the March 8th ones done in the next week.
Thank you.
And so the I'm sorry, you said April 9th. is the-
Second Tuesday of the month.
And is that at 7 or 7:30?
At
7,
yes.
okay, thank you.
This was just an odd adjustment.
So that's a good question about the town emails. I will ask about that. And there is a park town email, right?
So park, I did speak to Naomi.
Okay.
I think I mentioned it at the last meeting. So the park email had been broken for probably 2 months. We were getting no emails. Naomi was forwarding them to us. I think they finally fixed the park, but in the process of doing that, I put in Salem asked me to talk to Naomi about moving this commission forward with getting the .gov email addresses. I think there's a financial component to that, and that she also has a whole lot of other ones
Yeah.
that they're trying to get done too. So I think it's a matter of, is the town gonna just, or if the board would just say, let's make it a priority to get all our board and commission members a .gov, only because we're all using our personal emails,
Right,
which I don't think that's a good idea.
not for official, no,
Yeah.
I guess the question would be for.
Not ideal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I have spoken to Naomi. I think maybe it's just a matter of the Board of Selectmen might need to say, how do we make this a priority? And by what date do we hope to have everybody have a .gov?
My only issue with that is I already have a .gov email, and I can't get Park email
Yeah, but
when I'm in that office. I'm not Park and Rec.
Right, but
So-
you can get it when you go home, right?
No, I don't access that at home.
So you, wait a minute.
I only have where nh.gov when I'm in the building. I do not access it when
But
I'm
you
outside
can
of the
get,
building.
they'll probably make you a separate one, so you
But
have
if
two,
you,
right?
but if they put that email address in the park group,
It's gonna come to this computer over here,
And she's not allowed to access it.
why does it have to go to that computer?
because that's my .gov email. Because the way that the .gov emails are set up is first initial, last name, @wherenh.gov.
so they could give you
They would have to.
with a
they-
2 on the end of it or something,
Or something like that.
Godzilla. I
So,
don't,
And something to think about, I know that this .gov thing is I'm sorry, I'm still allowed to ask questions, right?
yes.
Of course.
This is gonna cost money, and we don't have very much. Right? How much do those email addresses cost every month?
don't know, but you're right, there is a licensing component on that.
Yeah,
That's a-
which is a major concern, I think, for us, depending on, if it's $1, it's one thing.
Well,
But if it's $25 per email per year or something,
Well,
that's,
I'll still put it on my list of questions to ask at the board level, with Naomi, and I can get an answer, and just either say, yeah, it's gonna be, $600 a month, or, it's gonna be $10 a month, it's gonna be worth it, or it's not gonna be worth it.
comes out of,
but I think at least when we knew what it was, we could then look at what line item,
Yeah, but
because,
this comes back down to all of that consistency. That if you're gonna do it for our board, and we're having ex officio on our board, it has to be consistent across all boards. It's either all or not, it's gotta be an all or not, so it's,
yeah, but I think then we're forced to pay for it.
yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess one of
And
the,
we end up
And
paying for it, and that
other boards
becomes-
have more money, so.
So, it's a discussion for another day.
well, I'll just throw this out there too. So there's the park, group that emails come in that is just distributed to everybody else's personal emails. Is that how it works right now?
Is it working right now?
Yes.
so the
That's how,
group,
is that how it's supposed to work?
yeah, so
Okay.
all of our personal emails are in that park group.
Yes, okay.
Well, yours aren't,
Well,
but it should
but
be.
you guys are brand new
Right.
as of this week. That will
Well,
happen.
they will add you into
Mm-hmm.
that group.
But does Lisa have your own,
I have my own personal email.
but not a town one?
No,
Okay,
None of us have a .gov, well, none of them have a
Understood.
.gov.
understood.
thank God.
I mean, if we're
No, I
not
mean,
getting
I
a
know.
.gov, can we get a, like, Shelby Perks at Gmail, like, so that it isn't,
You could do that.
like, mixed with our personal?
You absolutely can do that yourself.
I would recommend that. I did that myself, that just created a separate Gmail account that is strictly for this business, period.
Because that's what I
Until
want
it's,
to
yeah,
do.
until it's resolved, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I will,
She sent us an email saying that this was gonna be there.
my,
She sent
you know,
out
my personal opinion would be that at least the coordinator would have a town email, because you're the point person for interfacing with vendors and other things like that. So, according to the job description. So that would make sense for people to be able to get a hold of you directly, and you to be able to email them.
Right now, they call my personal cell phone.
Understood.
So if we're gonna go as far as to this is where it belongs, then that coordinator probably should have a cell phone. I don't want one. I'm just saying that if in the future,
Yeah.
if this is what they're saying, it's a security breach, you're looking at paying a coordinator cell phone.
Well, it's not a
bill.
security thing, it's more of a convenience so that, you know,
Yeah.
nefarious me isn't just spamming you on your home email. That's really what it is.
Oh, I was under the understanding that it was a security thing.
Well, it certainly makes requests, you know, FOIA requests easier, but, you know, that's the only thing that I'm aware
Or,
of.
yeah, or some sort of a legal thing.
So I,
But then in the same vein, it's a cell phone, then that, if you're looking at it that way, then you have to provide a cell phone to the people that you're employing, you know what I mean? Like then there'd have to be a cell phone. I'm just saying, I don't like the idea, I don't want one, but that's the road they're going down. Just-
Okay,
Yeah,
as far as the cost, if we could at least find out what the cost was,
Right.
because I do know I just pulled up the budget that Beth has sent us, and because of some overpayments that occurred in the telephone line item last fiscal year, we may, because we've been running a credit, so we may have money in the telephone line item
which we are right now.
that could offset that, so it will at least be
Yeah,
good
but
to
then
know
you
what
have
it
the
is.
problem
We have
is what do you-
$139.
But then you have a problem is what happens next year. Because
Yeah.
that, you know,
But
it's gonna cycle out and then, yeah, we might have a credit because we overpaid last year, but.
But then you put it in the budget
We'll
like
have
we
to put it in
did,
the budget.
we did
we'd
like
have
the
to add it
trash.
to the We'd have to add
Yeah.
it to the
so I
budget.
can at least find the information.
Yeah, when the dumpsters went up, we had to add it in the budget. You can't go a deficit if it's something that's mandatory, so I think we might have some room if we just knew how much it was. Get it done now.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to facilities, we're gonna hold off on the Chase Park right now. Skate park fence,
Firmly Rooted was there the other day fixing the fence on the middle school baseball field, and it looks like they fixed the skate park fence.
and there's not gonna be a bill coming to us. The school's taking care of it. Excellent.
Middle
Okay.
school took care of it.
Excellent.
Porta potties, Lisa.
So I did reach out to Drop One.
Mhm.
And they are more expensive than our current provider. And, I have also had requests from WAC this week. So, they have offered to reimburse us for the month of April to get them there early. So I went ahead and I did let American Guardian know that I would, depending on what the vote was tonight, or the decision was tonight, I don't think we really need to vote on it unless you don't want us, whatever the decision is tonight, that I would, call them and make changes, but I asked them to, drop off porta potties April 1st. Because and my thinking is that the fields are not covered in snow right now, which yes, I know. And that could all change, but WAC is looking to get on the fields April 7th, and I know we're supposed to meet to go, or people are gonna meet to go look at fields, but they're looking to get on fields April 7th.
So WAC is going to pay for the month of April?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, they offered to pay for the month of April.
And do you know how much it's gonna be per porta potty per month?
Yep, so sticking with American Guardian, it will be, I just wrote this all down, so I have it easier than on my phone. $139.50 for the standard ones, and $212.35 for the, handicapped accessible.
That one goes to Bolton, right?
We have a handicapped at Purington, at Inison, and at Bolton.
Okay.
And the tennis courts, we put a regular one in. And then I assumed that the tennis courts would also need one April 1st because of the weather being.
Yeah, I was gonna, we
But
probably
we
need to
can-
talk about that.
So
but,
we should,
yeah.
there should be a decision so that I can let them know what we want to do. with that.
So,
We put the handicap ones at all three fields? Where do we put the standard ones?
We put the standard one at the tennis court for spring.
Just the tennis court?
Yep, and then at Bolton, we put a regular one. Well, so here's the thing with Bolton, we can pinch some pennies because it's baseball season. This is what I did last year. I only put I put the handicap one at the baseball field. And then in the fall, I left the handicapped at the baseball field because another handicap goes down on the, near the football field because football pays for it. And then I put a standard down there to cover soccer
Okay.
and
Yeah, but you
other
got
sports.
You have lacrosse in the spring.
That's, yeah, so if you want, we can put one down. Last year I didn't. We have people using the playground, so,
I would have at least two at Bolton, whether one upper, one lower.
I would agree, I would agree.
I
we
would
need
think that you'd wanna put the handicap one down by the football field, simply because you've got
Nope.
more lacrosse.
And I'll tell you why not. The handy stays up at the baseball field because in the
Then we could-
fall, the football field puts a handicapped one down there, so at least we have one on site.
Okay.
That's why we did
Yeah.
it that way.
And whether we just put a sign that says handicap porta potty.
I don't think,
We've never put a sign out.
no, and then we can see it when we drive in.
We also will need then to vote to unlock Bolton. If you're gonna put them in by April first, we have to unlock Bolton by April first.
When was
We had
I
voted.
supposed
We
to
were
unlock
supposed to
it?
unlock Bolton,
April 30th.
April 30, oh yeah,
Or
we
no,
said
Friday
April,
before.
I thought we were doing the weekend, I thought we were doing the week
don't
of
remember.
February vacation, or excuse me, April vacation,
Like the weekend that it starts, so
Yeah.
it's the,
20 whatever, 20th or something.
So how many standard porta potties do we have?
one, or two.
Two. So that's, we have them out there for about 5 months?
Well, last year I pulled them in the middle of summer, which
Oh, okay.
really we can't do at the playground. But I pulled them for summer, and that's the other thing is that we can't be guaranteed another provider is going to allow us to pull them without charging us to drop them back off, and American Guardian's been really good about that. So even if we have a few little hiccups here and there with them, they're still cheaper.
I only ask because I just did a quick calculation, but it would be around 4,500 and we have 5,000 in the budget. So I think it's just one of those things we have to watch as we get into the season. Are we
but we're
tracking?
also not paying for the month of April.
I
except
took
for
that
the
out.
The one for the tennis courts, I don't think WAC is gonna pay for
Which
the
we
tennis
don't-
courts.
yeah.
So the 4,500 doesn't include the month of April.
Okay,
Although I'd have to add the tennis courts back into that, so we'd be almost at 47. So that's why I think we just have to watch and pull when we need
so
to pull.
if WAC is good with paying for the month of April, I say we get them out there on April 1st, or for April 1st. Or that week,
Good.
so that they're, provided that there's no more snow.
And now there's gonna be snow.
That comes, yeah, it's certainly
No,
gonna be a
there's
little,
not gonna be any snow,
that comes out of outside services, right?
Yes.
Okay,
so that's gonna be out of 590.
okay. Yeah, so we'll just have to watch it through the summer.
Well, so we would leave everything, we'll pull Purington's off after baseball season. We have to leave Ineson's up because there's a church league and other people using it all summer. We have to leave one at Bolton, but we don't need to leave both during the summer because of the playground. And then we leave one at the tennis courts.
Okay.
And I'm not suggesting we do this now, but in the future, if we start to see more adult leagues looking to use it over the summer, I mean, we've talked about it, but we've never had a fee. And particularly with WAC, because they do put a lot of money into it, but if we started to see more and more usage that prevented us, maybe even a small fee that would help offset the trash bins and the porta potties that we end up having to put in and keep there when the fields aren't in use, normally wouldn't have been in use.
Okay.
It's
Do you need
my,
a motion on
sorry, I'm sorry, if I can, it's my understanding that any monies that come in for park go directly into the general fund for the
No.
town?
No.
Oh, that's not,
It now goes into the revolving account that we have,
okay, great, thank you,
which is nice because,
for this very reason.
yeah, that we could use it and it helps offset, like last year, we repaired all the gates and fences using what we had gained from the revolving fund, so, I'm not suggesting we do that now, but I think we watch it. Yeah.
Dave, were you gonna say something?
I just didn't know if we had to do a motion because we're spending money to set up the rubbish service for the summer, or for the season.
Probably. He wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the placement of porta potties beginning the month of April with the commitment from Ware Athletic Club that they will cover the cost for the month of April.
Coming out of
Coming out of,
590?
yes, 590 Park and Rec's outside services.
For a second,
I'll s-
Good.
I'll second.
any further discussion?
Nope.
Do we need to clarify the amount that we're estimating?
Yeah, because I need to send it to Stephanie.
So- But we're looking for the season about 4,700.
So they're only gonna cover one at each field, so do you want me to hold off on doing the extra regular one at Bolton? Yeah, I would, I'm
Yeah,
not gonna
would
do
you-
that one yet.
Tell her there's two at Bolton, and that's,
Well, we're not gonna put two at Bolton though yet,
I would put two, because you're not gonna have
or are we?
kids.
Sorry, we are.
You're
I'm
not
sorry,
gonna
I
have
missed
kids going all the way down to the.
Kids are not gonna go all the way up to the baseball field,
it. Yeah,
so
Yeah.
do the two.
Do the two.
okay.
And then we just tell them that Bolton requires two, period.
I'm not sure we need to, I mean, we have a budget line item. I think as long as we,
Keep an eye on it.
yeah, that we make sure we don't go over, it, we've kind of budgeted within that.
I just know that all of a sudden, like if we have another fuel spike, we are getting,
I think they are offering to do one though at Bolton, not they weren't offering to do two. So I wanna make sure that I'm being very careful about how I enter this, cause it's the first time we've had an offer.
right,
So,
we still need to have, you still need to have two there. Because they're going there.
I
to-
understand that,
If
but
they're going there to drop one, it's easier to drop two than it is to come back
Yeah.
and get charged another drop charge.
no, I understand that, but are we paying for the other one? They're paying for the handicapped one, the one that's more expensive, and then we're paying for the
They
other?
pay for one, we pay for the
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And you could say, hey, look, you really need two, would you be willing to pay for the second one at Bolton?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think
Yeah.
we should ask them.
Ask them and say, hey, look, just for clarity,
Yeah.
Bolton really requires two, because you have two totally separate pieces.
Okay.
All right, everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Can we make East Road quick so we can move on?
Well, we'll try, but can I throw in tennis courts before
Oh,
East
sure.
Road?
Yeah.
Just that, I've already started having queries about unlocking the tennis courts. I was hoping to get up there today to see if there were frost heaves. But I think with the mild temperatures, I know Concord just opened theirs. However, because we have cracks, so, waiting till April till our next meeting isn't that long, but I think we might want to be prepared by the next meeting I'll go take a look at what it looks like. Last year, we waited until the frost heaves were gone.
Yep.
But if it looks pretty level, I think we'd be okay, but if we have any heaving, then we'd have to wait.
Do we still have the epoxy stuff to fill the cracks with?
We do, it's at my house.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to help me with it would be great. The temperatures would have to rise,
Over 55, right?
yeah, and have to stay that way, so it would be probably June, July
Okay.
before we could put it in. What I'd like to see is if the cracks that I filled last year held through the winter. If it didn't, then is it even worth? Well, we'd have to figure out, but we probably have 3/4 of a bucket
Okay.
left of the epoxy to fill, so. All right, so I put East Road on there just quickly, and part of it, I think, James, it's for you, and the other part is for the committee members, but I think, knowing that both articles passed, so it's, you're really no further along than where you were before. And for the, I guess for the commission, and then some guidance from the Board of Selectmen, so I have had a couple of people stop from Ware Athletics and ask, number one, can they, if WAC is willing to mow with a lawnmower, some of the field area down at East Road, would they be allowed to use it for practice? And one of the reasons they asked that, and I think we're going to run into this on April 6th, if the fields are not dry and we risk damaging the playing fields, is there a place that they could go practice? Because they felt like, they're not putting up fences, they're not spraying, they're just looking like they do at the gazebo for a field space that they could go practice. If we go through the walkthrough on April 6th, and the fields aren't able for them to start, and they want to start practicing, if they're willing to use that field area and mow it, it would allow us to get them on the fields and protect the playing fields until they dry. So I think we're looking for guidance.
This
It's
is those
front fields.
front fields.
Right, so it's, right now,
They're not front, they're really,
well,
that's what people keep thinking
I
that they're
un-
front,
I-
just so
I-
you know where they
it's
are.
the grass area, the
Yeah.
hayfields. But I think what we're looking for is, right now, it is town property, and it does not have an easement on it. Until it's resolved, we're not talking about any permanent structures. We're just talking about the ability to use some town property if we determine through the walkthrough, particularly with the way the weather looks over the next 2 weeks with a lot of rain, if they can't use the fields starting April 7th, is there a place, because they're gonna ruin the playing surface, and they're willing to go down there and use that area to practice, we're just looking for guidance if they can.
All right, so you're going to do your walkthrough on April 6th.
That's correct.
To determine if it's usable at that
Right.
point in terms of wetness.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And if it's not, it imposes issues on those teams because they have nowhere to practice.
Because the rest of the parks are not, Bolton and everything are not open yet.
Well, even if they are open, I'll give you an example. If we do a walkthrough on the football field, say for lacrosse, this is lacrosse season, right? No.
They get lacrosse
Yes.
and they get
Yeah.
them mixed up.
So-
It is lacrosse season.
Yeah, so if the fields are wet, and we say right now, if you practice on those fields, you're gonna tear them up.
Right.
And they're not gonna be in a state for starting games. We are not gonna be able to let you practice because the fields are too wet. If we could say to them, but you could, if WAC's willing to take their lawnmower and go down and mow the grass, they have already said it's at least a place that they could go practice, and it allows us to protect the fields, giving us 2 or 3 more weeks for them to dry before games actually start up.
So-
How wet is that field gonna be?
Yeah,
It's got
is
a way better drainage.
the drainage is
Yeah.
better?
We need to
Okay,
give
the
you an
drainage is
answer
better.
before April 6th.
Yeah.
Correct, because, and all we're looking for, all that they were asking was, and I think, I'm thinking that we would support this, is this is a way to protect
Our fields.
our fields for play and move them somewhere else to practice, since we're in limbo
Yep.
with the fields. So, question number 1.
Understood.
And then, I don't want to speak for the committee, but Pam, the reason I put this on here is, so we are at an impasse, and I think Parks and Rec has had a stake in the East Ware property. It's the only solution we have to the problem that we have, getting more fields, getting more practice, allowing fields to rest. So as we go forward to figure out what's going to happen, I would hope that Parks would be at the table to have some discussion. And I would like to just throw out a couple of suggestions. Doesn't mean that it has to happen, but it would be great, while we're trying to figure it out, there's a couple things we don't know. Parks doesn't know, the board doesn't know, Conservation doesn't know. Is the property even, is any part of that property even viable for athletic fields? Because an engineering study was never done. It was never done for the hayfields, it was never done for the woodland. So is this an opportunity so that we do the right thing? And I have a document I'll give you. We had reached out to 3 engineering firms prior to the vote, and one came back with an estimate. But wouldn't it be nice if we could come back to the town and say, the whole property is viable, so as we look at what's going to happen with the easement, we know at least any part of the property is viable. Or if an engineering firm came back and said, hey, none of the property is viable, well then Parks and Rec has to move on and look for something else. So I'm just making a suggestion, that be one thing that was done. 2 meetings ago, we had a member of the public stand up here and give us information. She had spoken to one of the New Hampshire Society for the Protection of Forests.
Okay.
They were familiar with the property. They had some history, the person had been involved. At the time, there was question that wasn't even agricultural. I think part of the reason they had problems getting funding was that it wasn't deemed as agricultural as it was. So my second suggestion would be, in addition to doing an engineering study, so we all know, is any of it viable, could the Conservation Commission be instructed to find out if any conservation societies would even be willing? Because I believe if we put an easement on any part of that property, we have to pay somebody to accept that easement, correct? I think that's how it works.
I cannot answer that question.
Okay. It's my understanding that either the New Hampshire Society or Piscataquag, being the 2 major ones, would have to say, we'll hold the easement and there'll be a fee to pay that. But what if they both said, it's not a priority for us, we don't have an interest? So wouldn't it be good to know 2 things? Is any part of the property viable? And is there even a society that would hold the easement if we're correct in that somebody has to hold that easement? I don't believe the town holds it. I don't know. I think the other properties, they're held by Southern New Hampshire or Piscataquag. So I'm throwing that out as a second. And then I would hope that maybe a second group, a subgroup would be put together so we could all be at the table as discussions are happening.
So if you listened or watched to the meeting on Monday, one of the suggestions that come up was to have our town council act as a mediator
Yep.
for all the different parties involved. So that's certainly not been ruled out.
Yep.
But the short answer is yes, we're trying to figure out
Yeah.
how we can move forward.
So I'm just throwing out a couple of suggestions and then asking that if she does become the mediator, that Parks has got a seat at the table. I mean, if they're going to bring all parties involved, it would be the board, conservation, parks, hopefully community members. Or is it going to be done behind closed doors and nobody?
No, I don't think it'd be done behind closed doors. The only thing I'm hesitant about is having people from the town as part of a mediating party, because,
Yeah.
the more parties you
Yeah.
have, the harder
Yeah.
it's gonna be to come up with something.
I just
That
threw-
doesn't mean it won't
yeah.
be, I don't believe it'd be a closed door.
Yeah.
It's probably gonna be,
I guess my only
public.
request is that Parks has a seat at the table. Yeah.
I don't see a
Being
reason.
one
that-
of us.
Right, I don't see a reason why I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
But I,
Can't make promises,
And,
because I'm only, here.
I mean, in terms of like wider recreational use. Part of that property, to my understanding, has had a snowmobile trail on it for
It does.
ever.
Yeah.
And the statewide snowmobile trail, I believe, would be greatly torn apart were that to no longer exist. And then for recreational use, when the snowmobile clubs, volunteers maintain those trails, and including using their tractor to, then a lot of snowshoers and cross-country skiers also enjoy those trails during seasons when we're blessed with snow. Those are like other recreational uses that have always existed on that property. And it is my belief that some, depending on where conservation was to put that, like if someone were to take the easement, some organizations allow those uses to continue and other organizations do not allow those uses to continue. So I just think as those are other recreational uses that we as part of Parks and Rec need to be cognizant of those other town
Yeah,
town uses.
in talking with other people in town too, a lot of them are concerned to make sure that any property that is put into conservation continues to allow snowmobiles on
Yeah.
there. You know, because there's minimal impact when the ground is frozen and there's snowpack on there, unlike, you know,
I
ATVs and other
think
things.
it's
going
my
on there.
understanding that Piscataquag does not allow
I'm not,
for that.
I'm not familiar enough.
Yeah.
with
So
that.
And they might make it,
So I think that's right to the point I was making, that as we get a group together, and I'm just, as our rep, I'm encouraging that we look at two things. An engineer, to identify if there's any viability for athletic recreational fields on that property.
Yep.
And know where the best places would be before we put any easement on it. And also to understand, is there a society that would accept it, and what rules do they have? So we all come to the table with a full set of understanding before we rush into anything, is really what I'm throwing out there. You might have articulated it better than I was, but, so I'm just, and if it's, you feel that somebody from this committee at some point needs to be, say that in front of the Board of Selectmen, we can do that, or you could just raise it as you're giving their updates, that's a recommendation coming from this committee, that those might be two helpful things to have done when the legal counsel gets us together to mediate. We want to have all the facts on the table.
If that's where we end up
Yeah,
going?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
We kind of need to wrap this or end this, because we still got an hour worth of applications to get through.
oh yeah, we could.
So we kind of need to pretty much wrap up what we're talking about. Obviously, we kind of done East Road, we need to finish what other lines we got on here and
Well,
go
I
as
I
close.
have one
go-
question, I have a question, can I ask
Go ahead.
first?
and I have one more comment that I mean, I
So
don't,
I have a question about, and I just don't understand this. So my understanding is that town property such as East Road, nobody would need to ask to use it because it's town
well,
property.
because of all the, out of respect, I think it's just.
No, I'm
better-
just
yeah.
wondering, like, if a football team shows up there, I mean, because we're not managing it,
Well,
so
but
it's
I
not
think,
up to us to manage it.
but I think you're also in the process of talking with the gentleman who's haying it, and I would guess that's part of why I think it's important that you bring it up, because if WAC goes down, if WAC were to go down there with the lawnmower and
Yeah.
Right.
mow it down, but again, advocating for what we need, you've got somebody from out of town with no lease, paying nothing, and we could take advantage of
money.
it. In there's the youth wouldn't have to go to Hennecker and rent fields, which they did last year.
And right now, I think that it would be hard to get on it, because my understanding is it was already, that there's already been manure spread this spring on it, which,
More than
without a
one.
lease and without insurance and without anything, that's happened.
Wow.
So my other question or just comment, I know I missed, I'm sorry, I was late, but the public comment, was there public comment about traffic?
No.
Oh,
Well,
yes,
yes,
there was.
Bill.
Yes, there
yes.
was.
So Bill Anderson lives across
Yeah.
the road.
So,
and-
so I
and his
think
brother.
it's important that everybody understands whether it goes in the front part of the property or the back part of the property, it's the same traffic. Because the town has already voted to use that property for recreation and athletics, if we decide to go forward with it, if it's viable. So I think we have to be respectful of the traffic, but to say,
But we can't do it because of traffic. Is not
traffic
their
is,
thing.
that got voted in 2013, that there would be some recreational facility there, so regardless of where you put it, it's gonna be the same traffic.
So if I can, again, and I will be more than willing to be corrected on this. I would caution, anyone against, taking lawnmowers to any
Yeah.
town property
Well,
So
yeah.
without pure.
But that's why
How
that's
were
why I'm
people
asking.
allowed to put manure there without?
So
that's-
with, I can only speculate. My surmising is that the gentleman had been doing that for many years, decades, and continued as he continues with the other pieces of that because there's one large field, but it's broken up into a couple of different parcels with different owners, my understanding. So the section that the town owns is only a portion of the overall hayfields.
Yeah.
And as he has hayed that for decades, and the town has only owned it for a little over 1 decade now, I believe that just continued on. And nobody thought about it, and nobody.
And no one was managing
nobody said
our
boo about it.
town land.
Although I
That's
do,
my-
Pam?
That's my
I do
speculation.
think if you look at the Board of Selectmen meetings, a couple of meetings ago, it was addressed that they had, that, I think, board member, I think Benji brought up, he saw a load of manure go down there, and they needed to get a lease in place, so I do think that they
They are
had
aware.
addressed that. But I want to clarify.
Or are in the process
Right.
of addressing
But
it.
I want to clarify, I was not advocating for anybody to go down there with a lawnmower.
No.
Hence why I was asking you to take that
Yep.
to the board. If we do this walkthrough on the 6th, and we need some additional area, can we have permission? And it's town property, but I want to be respectful.
Yep.
That we could direct those teams down to that area to be able to practice, to protect our playing fields until they dry up.
Understood.
Yeah,
I
okay.
will try to
All
get you
right.
an answer.
So I'm not
and-
advocating for anybody right now
Well,
taking their,
Yeah. I don't think anybody needs to mow anything yet.
yeah, so just want to clarify that.
I'd like to see if we could move to the orders of the day. This discussion is getting off track a little bit, and it relies on a lot of other input from things above our level.
Field usage, there was an email that was sent out from Deb Otiki, who is the gym teacher at the high school, about starting a tennis club. I was going to send her the facility use form and have her send it back to us. I think it was 1 or 2 days a week from like 3:30 to 5. My only concern is how we block off the tennis courts for that. If
I-
there's-
Well,
I
I think
don't-
like anything else, if they have a field usage form, and then they're allowed there and they bump anybody else, it's just
Oh.
like any other field, right?
Well, no, because we'd have to amend the rules we already have in place, which is the first, it's been, because it's community, it's first come, first serve. Because I think when like the pickleball club came, it was first come, first serve. If both courts are being used by pickleball, they yield one to tennis and vice versa. Doesn't mean we can't change that, but that, I think, is the way we had voted.
Thank you.
And I did tell her,
Did
you
you
know,
respond to her?
I did
Okay.
respond to her that it really wasn't ever, that was, like, it wasn't scheduled. Doesn't mean we can't change that. And I also offered to go up and talk to them about kind of the rules, like taking care of garbage and all of that if they wanted to, once they get the forms all filled out. I mean, we could block it off, but I think we have to be careful because we have to go back and look at the
Yeah.
guidelines that we had put in there when other groups had
Those are
come.
Posted on the website, right?
Well, because we weren't allowing other groups to just rent it, right? But the youth is a little bit different.
It's a community facility.
Yeah.
You know, then do you do a thing like we did with the fields? And you say everybody who has an interest, come in and
Yeah.
put your request forward. So,
Makes sense.
I mean, I don't see it being an issue, because I don't think it's used from 3 to 5 very often.
Yeah, they use it
But-
a lot during the day or later at night.
Yeah, it's usually after 5 or at 8 o'clock in the morning, but
Yeah.
we would just have to change our policy that we originally did.
I believe that would be a good idea. I think it should be field usage, court usage, much like we do the fields.
I agree.
All right, is there anything for financials or budget?
Yep.
Okay.
So, last month we talked about the cost of repairing that, or the temporary repair, because we couldn't make a full repair, to the, well at Inison. So the bill is in the mail. It's, $1,453.64.
What was that amount again?
$1,453.64.
And who's the vendor?
That was for Kentucky Artesian Well Company. And, that was, to repair broken wire. We have a depth of 565 feet. It is set, the pump is set at 300 feet down, and we did 4 tongue arresters, which, will help to hopefully keep it, from breaking again sooner. A wire splice kit, 4 wire splice kits, and the pump puller fee, along with 2 mechanics for 3 hours. And, it does note here, advise customer flat jacket wire is needed, which unfortunately I don't have the authority to allow them to do, at the time. Multiple chafing locations on wire in several spots, so they said, it could fail again immediately, or it could last a couple years, they're not sure. Installed extra torque arresters at trouble spots, which is what I had asked them to do, to hopefully, I felt like it was the best decision I could make at the time. And stay within budget.
And what
But they-
line was that coming out of?
So, is it park maintenance?
I pulled up the minutes where we made the motion. And we made a motion to take it out of 596,
Okay.
up
we
to
did.
$2,000, up to $2,000. But they didn't give you a quote of what it would cost to make the final repairs?
Oh, we were gonna be at like 4,500, so they could have done everything.
No, I'm
but-
just saying that they're.
No, not right yet, no, that'd be a separate,
Okay.
yeah.
Because you're gonna have to re-pull.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to we're gonna have to, we're gonna get charged again for them to come back out and pull that
I
whole
get,
thing
I
back
get
out.
all of that. I would have hoped on that bill, they would have said, we advise you to do this, and we estimate the cost to be,
Yeah, and that would have been nice, but they didn't
because
put it
then we
on
would
here.
know what we
I
were
think it
facing
was-
if it failed.
It's gonna be between 3,500 and 4,500 is what it sounded like, but I was down there for several hours with them, and I ended up leaving before they left because it was a very long day. So this is what we got.
So we
but I-
just need to make sure when that goes up to Beth, we make sure she knows it's to come out
Yep,
of
that's, so we're going out of 590,
596.
596.
Tell her when the motion was made to spend the money.
Okay, so,
It was made at the February meeting, the minutes that we didn't approve tonight, but I believe I've sent her the draft. So it was at the February 20th meeting that motion was It was reconfirmed at that meeting.
Are there any other bills, Lisa?
There's just the phone bill, which is a credit.
Okay.
Yep. Please use.
Although it's interesting, when we looked at the financials that Beth sent us, there were, the line item for the financials had $32.36
What
year to
line?
date, the telephone. Do you remember, I don't know if you have a chance to ask Beth, or I could ask her again. Remember I mentioned at the last meeting, there was a second document that she said she was putting in the mailbox, that it looks like this, and it has the details of what comes
Yeah.
out, so
I
we
get
can
after
trace
she
those
said
back.
We get it after the budget. I thought that's what was in the email she sent us today. Is that
No.
not what was in there? Okay,
No, this document was in here,
okay.
and she mailed us the financials, but if we had this document, it's the department detail, then we would know what that 32 was. And I only ask because we've got a credit, so what is the 32 that's hitting that?
And we wanted that does the year-to-date and month-to-date, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one gives you month-to-month detail, and then the one she sent us in the email gives us year-to-date. I thought she had mentioned that she always puts one copy of the detail in the mailbox,
There
but
wasn't
if there wasn't in there, then maybe we could ask her for that one. Then we would know what were being charged.
Anything else for financials or budget right now? So I make a motion to adjourn the public session of this meeting so we can go into non-public for Chase Park employment under, it's RSA 91:A. No, it's, forget what it is.
I don't see.
C. Hey, we always forget this one. Hold on.
I have it written down.
You do?
Yep. Sorry, bear with me a second.
Well, actually, there's a section in there.
Yeah, it's, RSA 91-A, colon 3C.
So I make a motion to adjourn the public session under RSA 91-A:3C to discuss Chase Park employment applications, and we will not reconvene for public after we adjourn the non-public session.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Can someone get this?
Oh, not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet.
I'm not doing it.